Hey everybody, Adam from the future here. So unfortunately I realized after putting this video together that my audio channel had become my microphone audio channel specifically had become disabled for the first round of this league. So I will be dubbing over the first round of this league to kind of keep you informed of kind of what was going through my head with some of these choices and everything. And then I do find that before round 2 starts and we get it all fixed up, so you'll go into normal audio there. But let's get into this. So today we are playing the mono white hate bears deck in Vintage. So the whole notion of this is that you have all of these cheap, hateful creatures via Spirit of the Labyrinth, Leonin Relic Order, Leonin Arbiter, Thalia Guardian of Thraben, Kataki War's Wage, and then things like the Containment Priest in the sideboard that kind of help shut down various strategies or interact with them, and impact what they're doing. And then you have Lurrus of the Dream Den as your companion. And so what Lurrus is going to do is, whereas if you were looking at something like green-white, they play cards like Cavern of Souls, because the notion was that like making your things uncounterable is kind of the way that you bully through, right? Just jam all your impactful spells off caverns and everything's great. Here, instead, we've taken the approach of, I don't care if my spells resolve or not, because eventually I'll put a Lurrus into play, and that Lurrus will start rebuying all of the things that matter over time. So, of course, in part of this package, you do have things like Strip Mine, Wasteland, and then just like Caracas, various other interactive pieces here that are going to kind of help to mitigate certain parts of your opponent's strategy, right? So if your opponent is, for example, playing like Blue Tinker or 8-cast or something where they're playing Urza or Emery, right? The Caracas is going to kind of help keep that in check a little bit. You have Luminarch Aspirant there to help kind of beef up some of your creatures. Most of these creatures are not particularly powerful on their own. I'm not going to close the game very quickly. Aspirant just helps turn everything into a clock. You have Giver Runes to protect yourself from various removal spells, as well as to be able to block Shop's threats profitably. So you can kind of stonewall them in the early game, kind of set up while you get your stuff online. You have a Deafening Silence for spell-based combo. You have Ghost Quarters because eventually that card just becomes Strip Mine. Potentially immediately, depending on what kind of deck your opponent's on. There's some Stony Silence, another Deafening Silence in the sideboard. Stony Silence being for artifact-based decks, shops, things like that. You have some Mindbreak Traps and the Deafening Silence for spell-based combo. Kataki for more artifact-centric decks. Swords to Plowshares against Tinker decks, or to their creature decks. Containment Priest versus Dredge, or the graveyard decks. Same with Rav Trap. And yeah, that pretty much kind of covers the deck. Another big thing here being Leonin Arbiter shutting off not only things like fetch lands, like people are used to in Modern, but also cards like Tinker and Demonic Tutor, which can be big portions of an opponent's strategy. It also shuts off the search, or can shut off the ability to search with Urza's Saga. Saga has become kind of a big part of the Vintage metagame right now, so being able to kind of shut that down helps. So here we are, right into round 1. We win the die roll, which is great. Our opponent is a known powerful Vintage wizard, and this hand looks excellent. This hand has a bunch of fast mana. We can just kind of dump a Spirit into play on turn 1. We have a Wasteland to kind of check their stuff. Opponent has Mull to 6, which feels excellent. It feels like this hand that is like medium disruptive gets a lot stronger. Relic Order is not a hard hate card, but what it's going to do is it's going to kind of take out of play, and now I'm pulling Mull against a 5, so this looks even better. Relic Order is going to answer like a Tinker threat that's put into play, or a bunch of fast mana. So speaking of fast mana, here we go with ours. I start with Pearl, because it really kind of, if I start dumping all of this fast mana quickly, it really it really kind of lets me figure out what my opponent's going to value here. There's my Spirit. In hindsight, I think it was actually correct to not play Mox Jet and just play Spirit off Plains Pearl, and then play Jet Emerald after the fact. Or just play like one of the off-color Moxes and Plains, and try to protect some of these cards from Mindbreak Trap. So opponent plays Underground Sea and passes. All of a sudden, we have this Wasteland. I don't need to play this Relic Order yet. Opponent just concedes. They're done with us. So my thoughts here are that opponent is either on Paradoxical Outcome, Blue Tinker, or something of that nature, maybe Doomsday. So I figure opponent is probably some sort of powerful spell-based deck. And so not knowing for sure which one makes it a little more difficult to kind of pick out which hate cards I think are meaningful. I believe I settle on some Mindbreak Traps, Kataki Deafening Silence. Just kind of going, okay, well, based on what's normally in the Vintage metagame, what would lead on Underground Sea and concede to Spirit of the Labyrinth plus Wasteland? My thoughts are Doomsday, PO, or Tinker. So, Trap is great. Trap is going to shut down, like, quick Tinkers on the play. And then we have boarded in the other Deafening Silence and the Kataki. This kind of, the Deafening Silence, again, is going to kind of help to slow down if they are PO or something like that, and the Kataki is the same thing. If they're on Outcome, they can't just play Artifact mana. Doomsday also plays some amount of Artifact mana, though not a ton. And what that's going to do versus Doomsday is mean that, like, if they want to play out their Artifact mana ahead of time to try to get ahead of Thalia, it's going to cost them tempo later. So I keep this hand on the back of Mental Misstep interacting on 1. I figure I have this Wasteland, should I want it? Opponent fetches Basic Swamp and Thoughtseizes us. And I'm like, that's strange, but like, okay. And of course I fire off the Mental Misstep because I want to protect all of this. So I find another Wasteland, which at the time, like, right this moment, looks pretty bad. Opponent has a basic land in play. They have basic Swamp in their deck, which leads me to believe that they might also have Dark Ritual. So, Polluted Delta, Black Lotus, like, wow, okay. If this is indeed Doomsday, like, we could be in trouble. So, here I just decide to jam Arbiter and make them fetch now before they have more information. And so, opponent fetches basic Island, which again, I'm like, okay. You have Island and Swamp in your deck. And Thoughtseize, and you conceded to... Okay. And now it shows up Urza's Saga. And this is where things get really strange, because basic Swamp tells me that opponent is not Tinker, and here we get real confirmation that something weird is going on when opponent plays a Liliana of the Veil. So, of course, we sacrifice our Arbiter, and opponent shows us the Rack. So this is obviously a brew. Opponent is kind of trying some stuff out. But this is pretty rad. So here, all of a sudden our hand kind of comes together. This Lotus Petal really kind of cracks things open. Cast this Relic Order because this... there are possibilities here, like... if opponent wants to take themselves off of Saga or whatever by, say, dazing or something to that effect. Cool, I can just... But it does resolve, and we take the Rack and then Wasteland them. And so next turn we have Spirit to shut down draw spells. Unfortunately, here's a Gataxian Probe, and opponent sees the Spirit is coming. They're going to make us discard. I decide this Caracas is probably not the life we want to live. Opponent has gotten rid of a Force of Will. So we get another piece of fast mana. I have a Wasteland here. And I get to cast Spirit of the Labyrinth. So I decide here that I want to pressure the Liliana, smelling full well this feels like opponent has something like Hull Breacher or Opposition Agent. This feels like opponent has some sort of Flash Hate Bear. We're correct. This is the Hull Breacher. And my thought here is that opponent might get their rack back currently, but I can just get a Lurrus into play, and then Lurrus can rebuy Relic Warder, and then Relic Warder can take the rack again and kind of clean all this up. So I do kind of think here for a moment that maybe I wasn't supposed to Wasteland, maybe I was just supposed to put Lurrus to hand, but if I put Lurrus to hand, then they definitely like make us discard, and I didn't really want to do that. So we take some damage off the rack. This is where I draw Kataki. And I think to myself, okay, if I cast this Kataki, all of a sudden, opponent has to start paying mana to keep their rack around, which means it gives them less to interact with. Like, less mana to interact with, and less mana to try to get ahead with. And here's Urza's Saga, which, unfortunately, is just the kind of thing you need to, like, start breaking this up a little bit. So, of course, we're going to take some damage from the rack here, decide if we are paying for our artifact mana or not. I decide to use Mox Terminal to pay for itself. And I think, okay, like, I probably want this Lotus Petal long term too, so we're going to pay for that. I do eventually want to be able to put this Lurrus in hand. So here's another Relic Order. And this gets the Lotus Petal out of the equation. So I'm not paying for Petal. Yep. It's like, I'll take the Urza's Saga here. I'll take a little more damage off the rack. As long as they don't have a clock, like, I'm going to start bashing for 4. They're going to start dealing 3 to me. I am a little behind in this race, but with the game plan being to get Lurrus to hand and then into play, I feel like we can start to kind of balance that out a little bit. Urborg here. And then we take some rack damage. Again, use Emerald to pay for itself. Just find another another thing to start clocking with. Like, this is great. Attack for 4. So then 4 turns into 6. So currently I am going to win this race. So I attack next turn for 6, taking 3 to 6. And then attack the following turn for lethal, going to 3. So opponent here has left up blue, which is a change from last turn. But what's also important here is that they also still have black because of their Urborg. So here I draw my planes, and I'm like, this is great. Now I get to put this Lurrus in hand, start clocking. It feels like we're in reasonable shape. This Lurrus is also going to insulate me next. It's going to prevent 1 point of damage from the rack. An opponent flashes an Opposition Agent. So this time they take out the Relic Warder, and it's like, okay, well, I have this Lurrus, I get to rebuy it. Like, this should be okay. They are going to get at least 1 construct off it this time. But just the 1, or at least just the 1 for now. And if they make any more, like, it really starts to choke up their mana for real because of this Kataki. So once again, I start evaluating, do I pay for this emerald? Do I not pay for this emerald? I decided to let this emerald go because if I really wanted to, I could replay it with Loris. Kind of a punish because I then do draw another plains. So it's like, okay, well, like, if I had paid for this, maybe I get to start looking at recasting other things out of my graveyard, but wasn't happening this turn. Opponent makes a 2/2. Decide to block. Trade off with my Katakis, so they're no longer choked. Their mana's no longer choked. They go to 3. I now decide, okay, well, I can replay the Lotus Petal from my graveyard, and then next turn I can cast another creature, either deal with the Rack or deal with Saga, and then opponent just shows it to me and says, okay, here we go. So they put a 2/2 construct into play, and then use their tutor from Urza Saga to find a second copy of the Rack. Of course, with only one card in hand, this now says that their racks are lethal in my upkeep. So I'm going to take 2 off of one copy of the Rack and 2 off of the other copy of the Rack, and I'm going to die. So I start looking at, is there anything I have with Flash that's going to help me interact here? No. Cool, I'm just dead. So now that we know what our opponent is actually doing, we start considering, okay, like, what do I actually want here? These traps seem very bad because I don't think opponent's going to cast too many spells in a given turn. I decided I want my removal back because opponent has showed me both Hull Breacher and Opposition Agent and Saga constructs that I would want to clear out of my way. And then I started thinking about, do I want the Swords to Plowshares? Do I want a Luminarch Aspirant back? And start kind of looking at what in my deck do I want or not like. Start looking at how good is Spirit, because opponent is a discard-based deck and not necessarily a like cantrip, Ancestral Recall deck of that nature. So I do Shade of Spirit, get back in one Luminarch Aspirant. Start again looking, do I want the Swords to Plowshares? Do I want my other Luminarch back? Nope, just submit. Loris, 1 lander, can't keep this. Start looking at this, go, okay, well, probably could have considered getting rid of my Deafening Silence. But at the same point, I feel like it's going to be very good here. Opponent did show me they're a Dark Ritual deck, so they no longer get the acceleration that Dark Ritual offers, unless they're Dark Ritualing into exactly a creature like Opposition Agent. But I decide Lotus Karakas stuff seems pretty good. So start with Spirit of the Labyrinth. Opponent deciding, is this something I'm okay with? They say no. That yes, that's fine. So here's this Deafening Silence. How much does that one? How do you feel about that one? That one's fine too? Okay, how about this Giver of Runes? This is the point where opponent decides they're not having it. This Giver can get out of here. I'm like, okay, that's fine. They pitched a Days Undoing, which is not something we saw previously. That is kind of an important thing to note, knowing that our opponent has Hull Breacher in their deck. Opponent casts Ancestral Recall into my Spirit of the Labyrinth, and then immediately types "oops" in chat, realizing, uh-oh, that's not what I want to do at all. So opponent cast 1 mana, do nothing. Pretty great. We draw another Giver of Runes, which is fantastic. The opponent showed us before that they were willing to force a will this card, And now we just we're just gonna slam one into play. Opponent has 3 cards in hand, 4 cards in hand. So they play Urborg. It's their first black source. They Hymn to Turok, taking our path. Okay, that's fine. Opponent is at 16. Game plan right now is clock with Spirit and maintain Giver for as long as possible to protect Spirit from any harm. Black Lotus, sure. Third Mana Source, seems great. Go to combat. Jam with just Spirit of the Labyrinth once again. Again, this giver is designed to protect Spirit of the Labyrinth at all costs at this point. I will spend this time putting Lurrus into my hand, and then pass the turn. Opponent, haha, got you, Thoughtseize. Okay, rad, great. Opponent has gotten our Lurrus, but they are at 8. So this is a reasonable game for us to win. We draw Wasteland, immediately take them off of black mana. If they want black for anything now, they have to use Lotus to get it. And the beautiful part about that is that it's a one-shot for them. Opponent now goes to 5. Again, this giver is just meant to protect Spirit of the Labyrinth at all costs. So here is Land and Relic Order. Kind of force the issue here. Your Lotus is now use it or lose it. Opponent decides to use it and flash an opposition agent. That's fine. I am absolutely priced into targeting one of my own permanents here, but I am absolutely allowed to decline this trigger, and I do so very, very happily. Keep all my stuff in play. It feels like opponent is in a very bad spot. So once again, clock with Spirit here. So our opponent's deciding, do I throw it in front of the bus this turn, next turn? They decide they have to this turn, otherwise they basically don't get a shot. So we end up taking their op agent out of play, have 5 power, 6 power on board. Opponent has only a single blue mana in play and can only cast 1 non-creature spell. And this is where opponent gives us the GGs and sends us on our way. We are now 1-0 playing Vintage Mono White. So, made a couple mistakes there. Definitely could have been a little more aggressive at getting my Lurrus to my hands and starting to get that into play and get that online faster, which I think would have been correct. And it is just shortly here where Past Adam realizes that our audio channel has been disabled, and we fix that up. And so I will send you on your way here. Just now realizing we never turned on audio. Hello everybody, thank you for joining me. Definitely off to an excellent start this weekend. We are currently 1-0 versus a blue-black rack waste not pile playing mono white. Yikes. Yikes. Oh. I guess this video has now become an experiment with me trying to dub over my own gameplay. So stay tuned for that on YouTube.
For anyone who's curious, I've been streaming for a whole, 3 months. Should have figured this out by now. We sure haven't. But, yes, we are currently 1-0 playing Mono White in Vintage. We beat a Blue-Black, Waste Not, The Rack, Urza Saga deck. Also playing Hull Breacher and Days Undoing. Breacher plus Days Undoing also just kind of feels like gas most of the time. Yikes. Hopefully everyone is having a great Saturday so far. So next week's streaming schedule will be TBD. I am starting a new work from home job as of Monday. So I have to figure out what my work schedule will look like at this new job before I can properly determine when I will be live. As it sits, I'm hoping to keep the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday thing going. That seems to work reasonably well based on the days my other teammates are putting out content. For any of you who have not yet been aware of this, I am a member of Team Swish out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Shout out to all of my Team Swish teammates who are currently in Wisconsin playing at the Nerd Rage gaming events this weekend. Alright. So I did see somebody posted this morning, or yesterday, that queue times were starting to get a little long in the Eternal formats. I think a big part of that being... Well, hello there. Glad you could finally join us. Promise one of these days I'll catch one of your streams. You always manage to go live as I'm laying in bed getting ready to crash for the night, but hopefully that is changing. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so I ended up working at a local grocery and liquor store when things kind of started to destabilize here in the state, and that kind of kept my schedule really weird. So I would see you going live at 10 o'clock or something, and I'm like, I'm already supposed to be in bed. I have to be up at 5:30 in the morning. But starting a work from home job on Monday, so my sleep schedule gets to readjust a little bit, which is excellent for me. So hopefully I will catch your stream here shortly. That's fair. I guess I always get the notification, I don't know, it feels like somewhere between 8:30 and 10, and that might just be, delay. Because I know that Twitch's notification system and all of the above, Twitter and all of the above, are not always great about feeding that to people. My wife has told me that I will post about going live on social media, and she won't get it until the following day, which is awesome. So, if you like what you see here, and you want to follow the stream, I would recommend hitting the follow button here on Twitch, and also following me on Twitter as well, because between the two of them, hopefully you will get the notifications when I go live. Hey! Round 2 to commence. And we get to play first again. Let's go! I'll show you this cap. This ain't it. This looks okay, but not amazing. Let's see. Land. If I ship Misstep, I get both of these. If I ship Misstep, I just get both of these creatures on turn 1. I think I like that. Oh, nice. Well, thanks, man. Hopefully your D&D game goes well. At some point, I need to talk to you because I have some people who have been interested in a webcam streamed D&D game, and I'm not exactly a confident DM, but I might know one. I'm going to keep this. We're going to ship the misstep, and we'll get max punished, but it's fine. So, I'm going to do all the things. And I think I jam... Mox. Jam this Kataki. Petal. Ruby. Thalia? So this line is strange in that it plays, like, I was able to use Kataki as a bait spell for Force of Will, but didn't play around Trap. Alright. Opponent casts Gataxian Pro. Oh, opponent is Oath of Druids. That's unfortunate. Ruby will pay for itself. Emerald will also pay for itself. This path is actually kind of gas, strangely enough. Yep, you're gonna need to put your... Okay. So opponent needs to have a force effect. Or Emrakul. I understand. Yes. Yes. I will just attack you. So if opponent is on Archon Oath, this actually feels okay. Given that they don't have the force effect. Sick. Opponent has one card left in their library. They better have a land. I really hope opponent just doesn't randomly have a land, because that would be hilarious. That's Mox Ruby, sure. Yes. Yes? I really just want to draw another path. I will attack. So... Memories Journey? They don't just have it. I mean, if you don't have the Gaia's Blessing or whatever in hand to cast... Okay. The last card in their deck was Gaia's Blessing.
Okay. I mean, we have the pressure here. Yep. Oath. Orchard. This is Time Ponder. Okay.
This is not just Time Walk. That's good. I mean, I guess it couldn't have been just Time Walk. I need another removal spell in a bad way. Strip Mine sucks. Yup. I mean, so opponent knows what my outs are. Sure. Okay. I can put Luris into hand with no hopes of casting it in the near future. I was just not supposed to play this Lotus, that's for sure. So Ruby will pay for Lotus, and will sack Ruby. Emerald will pay for itself. Oh, opponent did not trigger. Yes. No. Yes. Opponent didn't trigger Oath. That's so wild. Did they randomly draw their Archon? Okay. Opponent has once again chosen not to trigger Oath. Yup, blue. Preordain. I mean, right now this is lethal. That's so sick. That shouldn't have happened. Alright, we're gonna bring in Containment Priests. I'm gonna bring in Plow. How does Oath of Druids read? Judge? I don't think Oath of Druids searches. Reveal cards. Okay. It does not search. Therefore, Arbiter has less value than I would like it to. So I need to cut 3 cards. I think that I can shave 1 Arbiter. Maybe 2 Arbiter? Actually, Misstep feels like it's probably going to be pretty atrocious. So we'll shave 1 Arbiter, 1 Aspirant, and the Misstep, and board in yeah, this feels like it's probably reasonable. Dryad Militant actually very good here because it will... gas. Opponent is on the play. Mm-hmm. Ruby. Jet. I may just hold off here. I'll make opponent act first. That's fine. Opponent found the orchard. Okay, we now can't play this, which is kind of unfortunate. Interesting. How do you feel about this opponent? They just have dress down randomly. Sure. Alright. That's unfortunate. So we need to find a way to beat their Archon. And they hit the Gaia's Blessing there. That's unfortunate. Gonna discard my Aspirant here, I think. I think that's the worst card in my hand by kind of a lot. Rainstorm, sure. Alright. So, game plan here, I think... So I obviously need to draw a 1-mana removal spell. Oh, an opponent fetch. That's unfortunate. Was hoping to catch them with Arbiter. That's an Oko. Yup.
We got a new song that kind of is self-titled song, and I think it says it best when it could be anything that you love.
Okay. They're making a food. So they found the plan B. Alright. So... I think the game plan right now is just to cast as many of these things as possible. Cool. So I have a sneaking suspicion opponent is going to choose not to trigger Oath of Druids with this Dryad Militant in play. Oh, opponent did indeed trigger.
Did they hit their guy? They did hit their Gaia's two Gaia's blessings. Get rid of this one. Discard this land. So now I need runner removal spells. And this Luris is gone because they attack with. This might just be over. Opponent is elking their food. I mean, there was never an artifact there, so that's okay. I'm gonna take 9. A draw step needs to be, like, absolutely excellent, and I don't think that we have... Yeah. Mox, sure. Lotus, sure. Do you just have Time Walk? Or are we just digging for Time Walk? Deed me? Sick. Alright. So... I still think I like where I'm at. I'm just going to submit this... do I want to cut this Deafening Silence for a mental misstep? I don't think so. Yes, please. Show you this cat. I need fast mana. Or an answer to a thing. This'll do it. Gonna keep... Gonna ship Aspirant. Play Petal. Say go.
I got a feeling everything's gonna go downhill, and it's gonna go fast. So I start picturing
That's fine.
someone else.
So it's just like Mox, Orchard, Oath, go.
The wind was blowing like 1,000 angels. They got something to say.
It's not Mox, Orchard, Oath, go. There's Tarn. I'm just gonna jam this priest now while they have the fewest resources. Okay, they pitch preordain, sure. Yup. Opponent was priced into forcing the Containment Priest there because it literally shuts off Oath of Druids. So I have to decide here. Okay, there's Orchard. Do you have Oath? You do have Oath. Okay. Sure. As it stands, you can't dress down. You have to play another mana source. So, if opponent doesn't have another mana source and I spike one, Relic Order is the better play. Interesting. Pithing Needle, sure. What are you naming with this needle? Okay. I don't know that that actually matters, but like, cool. White source. Put the Mox into play. I will take my 1 damage. How many cards do they flip? Not very many. I will path Archon of Cruelty immediately before they get any extra cards or value out of it. That's unfortunate. Yup. Yeah, them strip mining there is actually going to be a huge game. Deed, sure. Yikes. Yeah, we're pretty sure to lose this one now. I really needed a mana source there. I actually needed like runner white sources. Oh, Sarah's Emissary. Name's instant. Yup. Just stone dead to that. I don't have a creature that can even think about answering that. Yikes. I'm gonna take a draw step just to see what we can come up with. Yeah, the odds of us racing are like super low. Oh, I guess we were 100% supposed to just attack into that. Opponent attacks for 7. We go to 10. End step. Yeah, that's not. That does absolutely nothing. We have died to Oath, which, truth be told, is about 100% how that matchup is supposed to go. Oath of Druids bullies creature decks and decks that just play to the board. So that's kind of how that's expected to turn out. But 1-1 is alright. You know, when you run into Oath as the creature deck, like, you expect to take a loss. The fact that we got 1 is pretty strong. But, alright. So, going into round 3 now. I mean, like, realistically, we're set up to beat, like, Shops, Dredge, all of the big blue soup decks. Like, all of that is
pretty okay for us. The decks that are not okay for us are things like Oath of Druids. Doomsday feels like it could be hard, just based on the nature of like the fact that Doomsday has basically infinite lines where it can play around so much stuff. But we'll see what shows up. Again, thank you everyone for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending your Saturday afternoon with me. And for those who are new watchers, my name is Adam. I am a member of Team Swish out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. I play primarily Legacy and Vintage. I stream 3 times a week here, and I usually upload some nature of video content once a week on the Swish Gaming YouTube channel. I also occasionally upload articles at swishgaming.com, where I will actually have an article regarding my Vintage Eternal Weekend kind of preparation and the event itself coming out here shortly. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, kind of wild queue times getting as long as they are, but I guess everyone's kind of becoming pretty I guess fed up, bored, whatever, with the current metagame states of both Legacy and Vintage. So I understand there are a lot of people, especially this close to the holiday, where they're just like, my time is already so precious, like, why? But honestly, what's strange is, like, I very clearly think something needs to happen in Vintage specifically with the card Urza Saga. I think Saga is incredibly powerful in Vintage specifically. And I do think that something's got to give there, but I'm still having fun. Like this doesn't feel like times in the past where there has been a clear-cut, this is what you should be doing. If you're not doing this, you 100% need to be playing a deck that beats this. It feels like there's still some play in the Vintage metagame. Legacy feels a little more rough right now. After playing a few different leagues recently, playing some Legacy, Legacy definitely doesn't feel like it's in an excellent place. And some of the teammates and I have been discussing what needs to happen pretty regularly, actually. And I don't know that I have a good solution. Like, there's a lot of conversation going on Twitter and the subreddits and things like that about cards like Expressive Iteration and Daze and Ragavan and Dragon Rage Channeler and Murktide Regent, and like all of that is well enough. I think that even if you were to go Scorched Earth and ban a whole swath of things, right? Just like nuke fire design problems from Orbit, I still think that it's just a band-aid at this point. And I think that banning Daze is not a good solution. I think that the decks where Daze is good, they will just find other cards like Spell Pierce or some such, and they will start playing those cards and just slowing down a turn or so. And I think most decks will be totally comfortable just doing that. So I don't know that banning Daze is a real solution to the problem. Personally, I'm a big fan of starting to look at unbanning some cards in Legacy. The 3 that have been at the top of my list for a hot minute now are Deathrite Shaman, Mana Drain, and Earthcraft. Hashtag free Earthcraft, right? Like, why is that card even on the ban list? This is ridiculous. Unban Earthcraft. Deathrite Shaman does a lot of interesting things. Deathrite Shaman at the time died because these 4+ color greed piles were taking over the format. Deathrite Shaman stitched their mana bases together and everything was great, blah 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 blah. The problem is that we banned Deathrite Shaman quite some time ago. And some of the top decks in the format are still these 4+ color good stuff greed piles. They just don't care. Because the decks and the cards that used to punish them just can't keep up. Like, it doesn't matter, right? Like, if you're trying to beat, the Bant Plus decks playing Blood Moon or Back to Basics or Wasteland, like, they're eventually just going to overcome you. They have, most of them are playing, Life from the Loam or Mox Diamond or whatever now, or they'll just slow down. They'll fetch their basics and, like, be patient, take their time, and then eventually just, like, stitch together all their nonsense. And they'll only open themselves up to Wasteland on pivotal turns where they're using the mana to do something very powerful. Like, Delver, or the Blue-Red X, Ragavan, Murktide, whatever piles, like, they don't need to win the game by Wastelanding you. Like, it can help, and it makes Daze feel very, very strong, but Wasteland isn't a pivotal part of the strategy like it used to be. Now, Wasteland is more a check for, like, some of the more powerful lands that have shown up, like Urza Saga, or Soul Lands, or what have you. So, that doesn't necessarily feel like it's problematic. It doesn't feel like Wasteland is doing the things that you necessarily want it to do to check these 4-color decks. So I think that Deathrite Shaman, like, checking Ragavan by just trading straight up for it, or, like, eating graveyard cards to help check Murktide and Dragon Rage Channeler, I think that's all great. Nope, not this one. Keep. Ship one of these. Done. Ox. Mox. And Deafening Silence. Force Pitch Preordained, sure. Kataki. Go ahead. So, opponent pitched a Preordain to Force of Will, so they could be most blue decks. We know they're not 8-cast, because 8-cast doesn't play Preordain, but, I mean, they could be almost anything else. Deafening Silence matters, so we figure they could be Outcome, they could be Tinker, could be Doomsday. Again, could be literally anything. Pearl means we're not playing against Doomsday. Red, red, red. The Braid is fine. Tinker sucks. It's just Citadel? That's a robot. Sick.
Alright. Priest, plow, deafening silence. I don't think militant's very good. I don't think that's very good. Spirit seems great. Relic Order seems excellent. I don't think I'm in the business of casting Luminar Cast for this game. I think I would much rather try to grind it out. Can board in a Stony. Could also board in Trap. Militant might be better than a Giver of Runes. I could see that. Giver seems pretty medium as a whole. I think I'm just gonna run this though. Yes, I'll play first. Show you a cat. Alright. Mock Sapphire. Mox Ruby. I'm just gonna cast this Arbiter. Saga's fine. You've got a needle. What is the needle name? Needle name's Wasteland, that's fine. Deafening Silence. Thalia. I am gonna have to overcome Saga constructs, but I think I have enough cards in my deck that just do that naturally. Island, yup. There is a Thalia in play, opponent. I'm gonna play Wasteland. I'm gonna put Luris to hand. Opponent won't be able to search with their Saga because they don't have enough mana in play. So they're just gonna Stone Rain themselves here. I guess they can tap Saga and Island. I think we're in a pretty good spot though. Okay. You did not pay for Lean and Arbiter. Good talk. There's another Saga. Sure. I'm gonna cast this Containment Priest now when opponent can't do anything about it. Talarian Academy. Yup. Talarian Academy does indeed make blue mana. Opponent goes to 8. I think that was opponent paying for Lian and Arbiter, which feels like a reasonable spot for me to be in. They get Mox Jet. Ooh, Volk. Red cards. This card is legendary. Also, opponent playing Virtue's Rune is, like, kind of hot. Another white source. Oh, that's gas. Here's my Thalia. Here's the Kataki. Opponent has to decide if they're going to try to pay for Needle. If they don't pay for Needle, I will Stone Wasteland them. They're paying for their stuff. Three mana. That is not Tinker mana. That is notable here. I guess they have 4 because of Jet, so they can just Tinker here. Opponent casts the Tinker. Alright. I'm gonna take you off of red mana here. I'm gonna tap these to pay for themselves. That can become relevant. Sick. Opponent cannot interact with this. I'm just going to exile their Blightsteel Colossus. Goodbye, Blightsteel. Yes, please.
Everybody's watching now. You don't know
So, opponent has to find an answer to Land and Relic Order.
where you need to go. You see it
They have exactly 1 turn to do so.
ways and can't seem to find.
It can't involve red mana. Unless they have another red source in hand.
You lost track of time. You've got to slow it down. Running on empty now.
Sick. Alright.
Stop and take a look around. You got devils in the
I think I'm gonna cut the givers and board in the traps on the draw. I have 5 1-minute answers. I think I just want trap as another way to try to bully an early tinker. Is there anything else here? Arbiter, Spirit. I could just try to hard hate by playing 2 Stonies instead of some number of other cards here. I think my artifact mana is very good though. Show you this cat. This hand does not make white mana. I mean, I guess. Ship one of these arbiters, I suppose. If opponent just has turn 1 Tinker, we can't beat it. Preordain is fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm figuring out if we draw Lotus. Ruby, sure. I'm gonna play Ruby. Play Plains, cast Stony Silence. Opponent forces pitching Brainstorm, sure. Underground Sea. Just slam off the Tinker. That's a Dak Faden. Steal my Mox. Yup. I'm gonna cast this Arbiter. Tinker is still the card that beats me by kind of a lot. That's another Mox, sure. Blue, Ancestral, yes. Saga, sure. So opponent is on the Saga to kill me plan. I want opponent to tap more of their mana because I want this Ghost Quarter targeting Urza Saga to just be absolutely backbreaking. And then Arbiter, Poke Dak. Yeah, I don't think I really get a turn to wait here. I'm just gonna fire this off. One red. Okay, they do pay. Sure. I'm gonna attack Dak. Preordain is fine. The more mana they spend digging for stuff, the less mana they have available to them to tinker plus pay for Arbiter. Sure. Red, red. I think I'm just gonna let that happen. I really need to draw a mana source here, but I currently have 2 pieces of 1 mana removal. They're gonna beat Yogg Will. Okay. You got a lot of stuff there. They're gonna Ancestral. That's fine. Saying that's fine, like I have anything to say on the matter in the first place. Like, the only thing we're possibly interacting with is if they tinker for Blightsteel. Lotus, yep. Preordain, sure. Opponent not really giving themselves a lot of options here. Sure. That's a Saga. That's unfortunate. Mana Crypt. Yup. Now we're gonna draw Deafening Silence next turn, like on a turn where it just doesn't matter. This is outcome. Oh, this is DAC. They just rebought their DAC. Sure. Yup, that's Time Walk. Key, sure. None of these cards are called Time Bolt. That's Jet. Yup. These constructs are going to be large. An opponent now has multiple plans, which is unfortunate. Not sure why we did that right that second, but I guess. Top is fine. That's another Saga, sure. I will just point this here. I will let opponent decide whether or not this matters. I mean, that almost assuredly does not matter. I will play Dryad Militant. I think we're going to lose this game just on the basis of not finding mana sources. Because right now, that's like the only thing that mattered was finding mana sources. Like, if we could have found a land to get this priest and play to beat a tinker, and then, like, top it off by, you know, finding ways to interact with Saga, that would have been excellent. Opponent's going to search for a thing. It's Needle. They're going to need a Wasteland, because of course you will. Yup. Like, honestly, I think this is better naming Black Lotus right now than it is Wasteland, but Okay. Tutor. So opponent shuffled their Blight Steel by discarding it to Dak Faden. Oh, well that's unfortunate. Opponent has assembled Vault Key, I will concede. Will I concede? I have a blocker for one turn. They can't attack this turn. They'd have to lose 5 in a row. The odds are not in my favor. I'm not gonna lie to you. Oh, and they just make another construct. Their constructs are obnoxiously large. They just make another one next turn. Yeah, we're dead. Well, alright. I think that one was close. I think that if we had drawn another mana source at some point along the way, that we end up in a much better position. But unfortunately, we did not. So we are 1-2. Losing to PO and Oath. Or Grixis Tinker. Probably more Grixis Tinker than PO. Felt like opponent could have well been on PO. But we never saw it, so I will assume Grixis Tinker, I suppose, until told otherwise. But I think that was reasonably close. Like, it's also strange to me, like, historically these decks have played, like, Phyrexian Revoker type cards. Just because, like, shutting off things like Vault Key is very good. SPO. Currently in a Vintage Masters draft also. They were seen playing Dredge. Yeah, I mean, I think we have to assume that opponent is not going to be on Dredge and just, like, try to do the thing. This is a card that if they are on Dredge does literal nothing. Other than making Ghost Quarter. Yep, they are on Dredge. Gross. Yeah, that sucks. What's the game plan here? Let's get Giver online. I mean, I think we're basically like 100% to lose this one. Our game 1 deck just doesn't do anything here. Yep. They're gonna need a couple of amalgams. We're gonna get Creeping Chilled. I think if we're gonna win this, it's gonna be kind of by a lot. Or by a little bit over a long period of time, so I'm gonna path this thing now. Yeah, opponent, like, just, like, trying to fake me out here and make me think they have some nature of, basic to find. Sure. Okay. Cast with Flashback. What are you naming?
What's your plan? I am curious. Opponent is trying to figure out what they name with this Cabal Therapy. I think most of our deck just doesn't matter. So, like, I think the only card that, like, really matters in this particular situation is if you name, Containment Priest, thinking that somehow I have Priest main. But even that, I think, is, like, pretty questionable. Luminarch Aspirant, sure. Yeah, I mean, you hit one. Yep, you're gonna need a couple of things. Well, they do have a Hogak. I didn't notice that. That's relevant. There's another Amalgam that's coming back. Yikes. Sure. What do I want here? I guess this? That's another Narcomoeba. Creeping Chill. Sure. Dredge. Dredge. Not 100% why opponent didn't do that in their upkeep, but, like, I guess. It's another Narcomoeba. So they've now got more bridges, which I intend on breaking. This one. Black. Okay. I'm gonna break opponent's bridges here. Opponent has correctly stacked their triggers. I don't think this particularly matters. Opponent is like miles and miles and miles ahead. Yeah, and this is Hogak. And because they gag from yard, they get their Amalgam back. The one that I killed. Yep, that doesn't matter at all. We're dead. Alright. Trap, 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 trap. Swords. Priest, priest. Arbiter is of very little consequence, but not zero consequence. Relic Order actually answers some of their stuff. Kataki answers, Hollow Ones, which are actually good against us. Giver does some things, but not a lot. I think Deafening Silence is pretty atrocious. They can cut Aspirants. Actually, cut Spirits as well. This Dryad Militant actually matters, like, kind of a lot, because it's going to shut off their therapies. This is going to shut off therapy. This is going to exile any of their garbage. I don't...
Maybe I'm gonna bring back these aspirants. Or an aspirant and 2 spirits. Because I don't think that Giver is actually gonna matter very much at all. I'll submit like this. I would love to play first. Show you a cat. This doesn't really do anything. I'm gonna mulligan. I guess this is okay. I still don't love it. Turn 1 Spirit, turn 2 Dryad Militant. They're mulliganing, they're already at 5. So, like, the Dredge deck is... Oh, Exile's 5 with Serum Powder. Okay. Mull to 4. Mull to 3. Mull to 2. 1. Is it Bazaar? Snap, concede. Okay. So resubmit. This time we need, like, active Yard Hate right off the get. Opponent just didn't find Bazaar in any of their 7s. Mulligan. Mulligan. Keep. Mox. Cancel. I think it is just Mox Lotus, strangely enough. I think we're gonna trap them. We're gonna put this into play. That's fine. This is gonna answer a hollow one if they have one. That's an Icarid and 2 thugs, sure. I guess we take it now, because we can. Opponent takes the swords. Now we want to draw a Wasteland, not like real bad way. Oh, they just take Arbiter. Sure. I won't show them the Caracas. It doesn't really matter. Bridge, Shambling Shell, Noxious Revival. Gross. Okay. Yikes. We're getting Creeping Chilled here, but that's like actually kind of okay. I'm gonna put a Spirit into play now. They don't have an Icarid. They have 1 Amalgam. Like, they're gonna go absolutely bananas this next turn. Yup. It's triple Narcomoeba. Okay. Okay. They did find 2 more amalgams. Gross. 2 more amalgams is very bad for me. They now have therapy as well. Oh, they're just gonna keep going. Yup, yup. Creeping chill, sure. Triple amalgam is going to be problematic. They can't currently gack me. JK. This Caracas checks the gack okay, but I'm like very, very dead.
What's up, Hanford?
Just F6, let all their garbage happen. Yep. Just attack with everything. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Very dead. Yikes. Well, okay. That was... Oh. I should have kept mulling for something a little more hateful, probably. Especially after opponent just, like, slam mulled all the way to 1 in game 2 and then conceded when they couldn't find Bazaar. Like, getting a gate, I should have been a little more aggressive, I think, with my mulligans. Or at least kept fast mana to deploy something on turn 1, and I didn't because I tried to play around Force of Vigor. And I just don't think that I was supposed to... If I was going to keep that hand, I don't think I was supposed to play Force of Vigor, like... Or worry about Force of Vigor at all. But I did. And I got punished. So, lesson learned. Mulligan more aggressively. Yeah, I think I just, like, wanted to jam a turn 1 Containment Priest there and just stare at them. Like, make them have Force of Will. But I think that matchup is generically pretty bad. You have a very finite number of cards that do anything at all. And the cards that you do have, like, are easily disrupted given that Dredge is playing so many cheap or free ways to interact with both your hand and your board state. And, I mean, I guess the stack for that matter, too. Because they're playing pitch counters, and we're not playing Cavern. Which was something I wondered about, like... I understand that this deck is trying to have a mana base that is not easily disrupted by, like, shops with Wastelands and Ghost Quarters and all that. But I wonder if we are supposed to... I wonder if this deck is supposed to play some amount of Cavern of Souls, even if it's a small number. Just for the matchups where you have cards that are so strong. And I guess the logic there is that Luris is going to bail you out. But if Luris is also counterable, that feels like a pretty frail concept. I will play first. Cat. This is too slow. Yeah. Ship one of these relic orders. I'm just gonna jam my deafening silence here. I don't see a point playing the Mox. If this was Pearl, I would be more interested in jamming it. Random misstep, sure. Yeah, like, if this was Mox Pearl, I would be much more interested in jamming my Mox right now, because then it would let me hold up Path. It is not Pearl, it is Sapphire, and therefore... Underground Sea. Mox Sapphire, sure. Pass. This feels a lot like Doomsday. I'm just gonna waste this. Opponent doesn't even float. Sapphire. I'm gonna take my mana denial where I can. Thalia Academy as 1 mana land, sure. This is Leon and Relic Order, Exile Mox Sapphire. Force of Will, pitching Force of Negation. Opponent has correctly identified they don't get to play this game if they let that Leon Relic Order resolve. Basic Island. Sure. Pearl. I will put Luris to hand. I will keep up the least disruptible mana source. I'm gonna set a stop now. Opponent will assuredly have another island, but I think that's actively fine. Three, four. That's an Urza, sure. That's a Saga. That's less good. Draw Wasteland. Not Wasteland. Okay. I guess. Jam this. Grab Relic Order. Take their Saga away. Yes, please.
So let's take this storm head on to the wind and sway our glasses.
Ruby's fine. Spin with Urza. Play their Delta, sure. Yeah, that's fine. There's a 0% chance of me blocking that. Oh, that's gas. I will play Deafening Silence. I will cast Leader Relic Quarter. Yes. I will set a stop in my opponent's upkeep and path to exile their Urza. This is opponent activating Urza to see if they can randomly spike a Force of Will. Rude! Rude, opponent. I'm gonna cast my Arbiter. Good plan, opponent. Put Urza back in their hand. I'm no longer interested in attacking with this Relic Order that is Exile the Saga. Opponent is showing me that they're okay. Yup. 3/3. 4/4. Yes. All right. So 1, 2, 3. Replay Luris. Yes. So as long as I don't use this one, we're golden. I have this Caracas randomly. Opponent takes 2. I will play this Luris. Opponent just has... Oh, they're spinning for Force of Will. That is not a Force of Will. So, opponent's in a pretty weird holding pattern. I just need an answer to this construct as it sits. Spin, yes. Narset, sure. I'm exclusively looking for an answer to this construct. Show me Force of Negation. Or other various bad cards. Tinker. I guess Tinker's actually fine. That's a force of will. Three, four. A new Urza. That is unfortunate. That gives them another construct, which makes their current constructs even larger. Play this off my Moxes. I'm not interested in attacking Narset with Luris right now because they can actually pay for their Force of Will. This is a really weird position that we're in currently. This is where opponent like shows me they guarantee the blue card, I'm sure. So this being Blue Tinker, I know that I want the Containment Priest out of my sideboard. I'm also pretty sure I don't want the Dryad Militant. Time Vault. That's unfortunate. That's not a blue card, which is good for me. Yeah, that one taps for a lot. You are correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Spin with Urza. That's a Ponder. What are we casting? That's a Time Walk. That's unfortunate. I think I'm just gonna take the 10 this turn. I think I'm more scared of what happens next. Because I think what happens next is a lot scarier. The opponent has already shown me they have Time Vault in hand. Luris, you know, it would have been great if at any point in this game you could have cast this Wasteland, put this Wasteland into play. That's Time Vault. Yep. Do you also have Key? I think this Thalia is of minimal consequence given that my opponent has Tolarian Academy.
Wish there was
I can recast that relic order if that becomes a relevant portion of this game.
New research is blaming the echo chambers created by social media for the polarization of the country.
Bounce this. Oh, that's gas.
The CDC reports suicide attempts rose 51% since 2020.
How many things do you have, opponent? Okay. I'm going to proceed to combat. Hull Breacher? Kind of figured, yup. I can just bounce that, you're correct. They're trying to figure out which portion of this they're supposed to allow.
Guess I let it all go out of fear and shame.
So this is actually really interesting. The life gain is actually super relevant here. We're going to trade these off. Do you have Force of Will as your last card? You do not. Alright. Urza, yup. How aggressive does opponent get? All the way. Okay. This is a really weird state we're in. 1 mana removal spell off the top actually just like ends this game. Unless opponent has like misstep or some such. Is this spin for key? That ain't key, but that's a good one. Not gonna lie to you. Yikes. That was so close. That was so close. Alright, so Stoney's actually good. Kitaki, Containment Priest, Plow. I guess Stoney's of medium quality. They can kind of play around it. Spirit is always at least medium good. Arbiter is actually kind of great. They can cut Deafening Silence. I think that's a pretty medium quality. I have to decide if... I'm gonna cut the Dryad Militant. I think Misstep is pretty bad. I want the 1 mana removal because I need ways to clear Urza that matter. Thalia is actually pretty reasonable. Relic Order is insane. I have to cut 4 cards. I think I'm just gonna get off of the Aspirant plan. I think that is actively worse than like half the things I can be doing. I think that Arbiter shutting off Saga and their tutors and fetches and stuff like that is reasonable. Containment Priest shutting off Tinker for Sphinx is very good. Yeah, I like this. Yep. Cat. This has no fast mana, but beats just about everything else. Strangely enough, I think I'm going to keep this. I think this hand does a lot of the things that I want it to do. This is just basic plains go. Yup. This is Needle on Wasteland. Yup. That I think is fine. I'm just gonna use Relic Order here to just take Saga. Do you have Force of Will? You do have Force of Will. Okay. Cool. Mm-hmm. Time Walk is fine. You just have Vault Key. I will be so upset if opponent just like casually has Vault Key. Because this is tutor for Vault, or tutor for Key, and if they just play Vault, and then play any mana producing land. Soul Ring, sure. Another Saga, you got it. Hull Breacher, yes. Jam the Stony. Plow this idiot. Go ahead. Sick. Opponent did not prepare for me to board in Stony Silence. So this is where I consider Trap. I think I'm going to bring it in. I have to decide what it's better than. I think I need to try to beat a Quick Tinker, because I think Quick Tinker is what's going to kill me this time around. In that regards, maybe Deafening Silence comes back in too. Though I guess if it wasn't good enough on the play, why is it good enough on the draw? I'm going to shave a Spirit and a Kitaki, I think, for these two traps. I mean, I like this well enough. The only thing this doesn't beat is Sphinx off. I guess this does beat Sphinx, because they can't. Sure. I will play a Giver Runes. Yup. Underground Sea, go. Mox Pearl. Wasteland you. Sure. Eliminate is fine. I will play Spirit of the Labyrinth. You have resolved key. I will play Mox. Put Luris to hand. Play Ghost Quarter. I've got to decide if I want... I think I'm going to hold on to this Ghost Quarter. I think it's more important that it's something else. If opponent tries to resolve a Needle, I will snap Ghost Quarter their Underground Sea. Ooh. Opponent doing a whole lot of nothing. Petal. Land. Luris. Force of Will. Alright. I think this is just fine. I like the pattern we're in. Ooh. Opponent's still stuck. I will put a Caracas into play. I think now that I have the mana, I'm willing to take them off of this. I'm just going to clock them for 3 over and over and over again until they die. They can't draw any extra cards until they answer this. I've now taken them off black mana, which it makes it harder to do so. Playing my Wasteland out. Yikes. Opponent is absolutely struggling. Needle is gonna resolve. I think it has to name Wasteland. Yup. I'll just keep making my land drops. Sick. Well, okay. Couple of mistakes along the way there, but we ended up with a 2-3. Again, I think that we're basically 100% to lose to Oath. I think that Oath is not a deck that we are designed to beat. We fuel their game plan way too much already. I think that Dredge is very difficult. I think I could have mulliganed more aggressively into more hateful hands versus Dredge, and I did not. That said, I also don't think we have a ton of cards that matter versus Dredge, so I think that the odds of us winning that matchup are usually reasonably low. But yeah, overall, like, this feels pretty sick. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I did see a couple of lists playing a second Dryad Militant. I don't think you need it. I understand why it's in the deck, but I don't know that it's, like, the Stone Cold Nut, you need to play a couple of them. Yeah, beyond that, like, some number of Cavern of Souls would have been gas. There are just, like, a non-zero number of things I would like to be uncounterable. One of them being the Luris itself, Spirit of the Labyrinth being gas, like, a lot of the time. Arbiter is, like, hot fire. There's just enough of these cards that I wish were uncounterable, that I think Cavern would be good. Containment Priests out of the sideboard, just, like, absolutely dumpstering things like Dredge and stuff. Yeah, so, like, I think I would like a Cavern. I don't know, like, maybe you're supposed to play it over, like, a Caracas or a Ghost Quarter or something, unclear. Maybe a Wasteland. Cut one of your Wastelands to play a Cavern, cut a Caracas to play a Cavern. I could see it. But yeah. So, thank you everyone so much for coming out today. Again, I will be back next week, looking to keep the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday thing, but still waiting to figure out what the new job schedule is going to look like. So, TBD, we'll find out. In the meantime, stay tuned. I will have some sort of video going live on the Swish Gaming YouTube channel, which is down in the Twitch bio information. There will be something going live tomorrow morning, so keep an eye out for that. And in the meantime, you all have a great Saturday. Cheers, everybody.